Hello friends and welcome back to the White Cottage. My name is Leni, I am from Germany and I love to make things with my own two hands. If it's knitting, some crocheting, quilting, sewing, gardening and everything that you can do with your produce from the garden. But this channel is mainly about my handmade things from knitting, crocheting to sewing, quilting. In this video I want to give you an update of what I have been making. I'm still trying to figure out how I will manage making videos about quilting and knitting. Those are my main two topics here. In this video I will try out to make an update on both of these topics and we'll have chapters down below if you are only interested in one of them. So I have just been editing the knitting portion of this video and it's already really long, so I decided to leave out the quilting update for now and hopefully make a separate video for you guys for next week on that. I am also still trying to figure out where is the best place to film in my apartment. I think I might like this setup here. You can tell me down below what you think. So I will be starting with my knitting. I have some finished objects, a lot of works in progress, and also some future plans that I want to share with you today. We can start with what I'm wearing. I am wearing my Felix pullover that I showed you as a finished object in my last episode. I have been wearing this pretty much every day since I finished it. I love it, and it's also one of the only sweaters that I have that I can comfortably wear over pants. All of my other hand knits are cropped and I don't like combining a cropped sweater or pullover with like normal waist pants. This Felix pullover is knit in lead lopi yarn from E-Mai. I love this yarn. This is a very rustic yarn, but to me it has it's kind of a mixture of very soft and very rustic. I am very happy that I am not at all sensitive to wool. When it gets warm, when I feel warm, wool starts to get scratchy, but until then I am totally fine with wearing this Norwegian or Icelandic, sorry, it's Icelandic wool next to skin. I am wearing like a top underneath, but around my neck and on my arms there's nothing between my skin and the sweater, and I have no problems wearing it that way. And I am also wearing my glacier headband. I made this in 2023. This is the Vovo from Red Rosaria Rosa Pomar yarn. I made my purple fizz, or the pattern is called Pink Fizz, from Andrea Maury in this yarn and had some left over and made this headband. So I have my knitting journal here and my laptop so I can tell you all about my knits. Let's start with my finished objects. This is the first one, or the next one I finished after the last time I filmed. So this was my next finish. This is the home cardigan by Katery. I knit this using E-Mai yarns. Again, I love that yarn, but this time this is the Pletulopi, so this is the unspun yarn. So I knit the size 1. The pattern calls for a bulky weight. I think the E-Mai Pletulopi is categorized as an worsted or Aran weight, but my gauge is 14 stitches and the pattern calls for a 15 stitch gauge. So it is a bit larger than what the pattern would have become if I had knitted it in the real or in the right gauge, but it fits very nicely. I will hopefully insert some footage here of me wearing it. I love this pattern. It's a very classic pattern. It has this V-neck shape that I very much like in cardigans, because if you have a round neck shape you often have this flopping thing going on up here if you haven't buttoned it all up. And in my opinion, if you always have your cardigan buttoned all up, that's not really the point in cardigans, in my opinion. I can just wear a sweater if I would have it buttoned all up. This cardigan does not have any buttons yet. I still need to put some on. I have to check if I have some that would fit or if I have to order some. So this is a very, as I said, a very simple or a very classical pattern. It is dropped sleeves, so you start casting on stitches for the back and knit down to where your sleeve would begin, and then pick up stitches for the right and the left front do some shaping and then join the stitches here where your sleeve would end or begin, however you want to call it, and then knit flat down, and then you go back and knit the button band. This is the third time that I have knit this cardigan, and I really love it. I love this yarn. It is a bit more bluish than I would have hoped for, but I still think it looks really cute. My next finished object, if you watched my last episode, you have seen my yellow hat that I finished for myself. And this is my next finished object. I had to go back and rip out that yellow hat because after wearing it for a few days, it was just too big for me. It did not really feel comfortable, and I really wanted a nice fitting yellow hat. So yesterday I ripped it out and re-knit it, but this time in a slightly different pattern. So I checked Ravelry for some patterns, did not really find one that I liked, so I checked YouTube and found the German maker who had this very easy tutorial on how to make this broken ribbed hat. So you start with the brim. Her pattern actually has like a double folded, so it would be like you have 3 layers of fabric here. I just did it with one. I hope that makes sense. So you just knit 2 by 2 for the brim, and then you go in and do a broken ribbing. You start some decreases up here and then turn into a 1 by 1 broken, and then at the very top you only have stockinette stitch until you just thread your yarn through the last few stitches, pull it shut, and then you have this nice little starry top. I really like how this turned out. I just cast it off right before starting filming this. It does look tiny, but it does fit because 2 by 2 ribbing is very stretchy, and this just fits so much better than the one that I made before. Before I made the 2 by 2 ribbed hat pattern, it's a free pattern on Ravelry. Nothing against the pattern, it was not the pattern's fault, it was my fault because I just cast on too many stitches and did not really check gauge or did not really check if that would actually fit me. So this is a simple hat, which I really like. I will link down below the YouTube video. It is in German, but maybe you can just with like the auto translate. It's pretty simple. If you have knit hats or have knit things before, it's very simple to figure out. I think the automatic translation on YouTube might also be all that you need to knit a hat like this. This is knit in the West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft. This is their yellow color. Their colors, I think they are named after some towns in England, if I am correct. And I really like this. I love this. I have loved wearing my other yellow hat also, but it was too big. But I just love this pop of color. And I think it also goes really nicely with some purple like this, or the dark greens that I also like to wear, or these beige browns. Those were my 2 finished objects since last time. I have cast on quite a few new projects, and it has been a whirlwind of emotions, frustrations, and ripping out. I am very happy about knitting, that you can actually just rip out things very easily and re-knit them if you have made some mistakes. So let's continue with a whip that you have seen before, which is in this little elephant bag that I made. If you are interested in like a little video tutorial thing of how I made this bag, let me know. I definitely want to make some more and could just film my process, and you can make some of these too. So this project living in here is my Zweig pullover sweater that I am knitting I am knitting this in, here it is, Red Rosaria Rosa Pomar Mondim. This is their sock yarn. This is the same brand which I knit my headband from. It's plastic free, as I told you about last time, so this is one of my go-to fingering weight yarns for knitting sweaters or garments other than socks, because I don't want any plastic in any of my garments, with the only exception of socks. I have continued a bit. As you can see, I will hopefully also put in some footage of me wearing this. I am at the moment at the body section. I made some mistakes. So last time I told you that I would maybe split for sleeves in the color work, because I read the dimensions wrong of how far you were supposed to knit. I read them for the body and not the yoke. So I thought, like, I don't know how much inches it was, but it was very deep for yoke. So I was confused and thought, okay, I would split for sleeves earlier, but that was my mistake. And the other mistake that I made in the color work, if you have seen the pattern, you were actually supposed to, after these little columns here, have one row of your main color and then the row of your contrast color. I can't really be bothered to go back and fix it. I don't really mind, so yeah. As I said, I am hopefully not losing stitches here. I am at the body, and you have these little tiny cross cables that I hope you can see. I am not really sure of how I feel about them. I have thought about just unraveling like stitch columns and undoing them. On the other hand, I don't really mind them being there. Yeah, I have not really made up my mind about these. I will definitely not knit them on at the sleeves. I don't know if the pattern tells you to do that. I won't be doing that. But at the moment, this knit is kind of hibernating because it is a fingering weight sweater. It's not really something that I will be wearing or getting too much wear out of in winter. So I have prioritized some of my other knits. A new cast on, or one of the new cast ons, I think all the other projects you have not seen before, is this. This is kind of hard to show you. This is supposed to become a raglan version of the Ditte sweater. The Ditte sweater is by a designer called Rike Orum. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Or also known as Not Perfect Knit. I had this on my knitting plans for fall and winter of last year. I have not gotten around to it. So now I finally cast it on, but it is knit and as round yoke. And as I have said, I think multiple times before on this channel, I'm not a big fan of round yokes. I don't really like the fit of them. So I decided to turn this into a raglan. I thought about turning it into a drop sleeve sweater, and for some reason I decided to turn it into raglan. The base of this pattern is copied by is kind of the numbers of the Felix pullover, and I am just knitting it without these little eyelet or yarn over hole things here to make a raglan. I am knitting this 2 yarns held double from, this is the also Istex yarns again. This is their, I think it's kind of new, the Fialalopi. This is supposed to be a sport weight yarn. I'm not too sure if I would call it a fingering weight yarn actually. It's kind of the same thickness as the Mondim. It's also a bit it has some parts that are thicker and some parts that are thinner. It does not, I don't mind. It's just to keep in mind if you want to knit with this yarn. I have not really been knitting that actively on this because together with another project I was changing, or I was modifying, that's the word, 2 sweater patterns at the same time, and at some point I was just totally fed up of like running the risk of having to rip it all back and reknit it. So I was kind of in a frustrated mood, I want to say. I just wanted to knit something like the pattern told me and not have to think about doing any modifications. So that is why this has not really gotten that much done on it, but I will hopefully pick this back up in the not too near future. The other pattern that I modified, or am working on at the same time, which I had modified, is this one. You can't really see that much. This is the Through Shadows pattern by Melody Hoffman. It is a beautiful round yoke pattern with this very minimalistic color work. It is knit using Istex yarns. Again, this is actually the yarn that the pattern calls for. Plutulopi. I think I'm even knitting this in the exact same colors that the pattern calls for, or that the pattern was knit in, I'm not sure. And the story of this goes, well, so the story behind this sweater is I had this yarn, did not really know what to do with it, checked on Ravelry and found this pattern, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So the Through Shadows sweater is knit within 17 stitch gauge. I have knit this home cardigan and the Christmas sweater that I knit for my niece at a 14 stitch gauge, and I was actually pretty happy with the gauge and did not know how you want to squeeze the knits, or the what are they called? The stitches so tight that you would get a 17 stitch gauge. So I thought, okay, I have a 14 stitch gauge. I will just go down two sizes and that will be fine. Then I started knitting and it did fit me, but I assumed that, I don't know why I assumed this, that I would have to split for the sleeves before finishing the color work, and that the German short rows, which are knit to raise the back as in most patterns, are coming after the color work. So I started doing the short rows in the color work to have them done so that I could split for sleeves. And it fit, but it was pretty tight at the shoulders. So I was thinking about it and I could have blocked it once again. I already blocked it at the beginning to see if it actually fits. I could block it again. I did not really want to wait like 2 or 3 days for it to dry to continue knitting on it, and I was kind of fed up at just improvising and just wanted to knit what the pattern told me. So I measured my gauge and I did not knit it at a 14 stitch gauge as I thought. I was, I don't know what, 16, maybe even 17 that the pattern actually called for. So I thought, okay, I am just fed up with this. I ripped it all back, and the nice thing is about the Plutulopi yarn, you can actually rip it back. So I ripped back the whole sweater, cast on the size 3, that would have been my size, or a bit smaller, a tiny bit smaller than my size, or to accommodate for my 16-ish stitch gauge. And I cast it back on and knit. So this is how far I am at the moment. All of these tiny stitch markers are there to, you can't really see them, are there for me to know where this little star or snowflake is that you embroider on top. at the end or once you are finished with the pattern. I am really curious to see how this will fit because it is another round yoke. The problem with round yokes is that they don't really, in my opinion, I have heard it from a few YouTubers, so knitters, that they are not really happy with the fit of round yokes, and that is my opinion, or my and that is what I have. I can't think of the word right now, but that is how I have felt about round yokes. But on the other hand, they are beautiful. There are some really, really beautiful patterns out there as round yokes, so I thought I would give it another try and knit this and see how I feel about this round yoke, because the one round yoke that I have, which is my Into the Wild sweater, it has color work. It has this very much color work, or not much, but it is knit with 4 different colors on the yoke, so that makes a very thick fabric, and that might be one of the issues with that sweater, with like movability in that one, which might be better here because you only have 2 colors and it is very minimalistic, the color work. So this sweater lives in this nice little basket thing and is pretty much my main whip at the moment. So when I was very tired of improvising patterns, I cast on another sock, which is this one. This is actually already the second one which I cast on. I can show you the first one. They live together with another sock. They live in this little project bag which I made quite a while back. So this is the first one that I made. This is a very simple sock. I created my own little sock formula of putting in like the size that I want and my gauge, and it will spit out the numbers or how far I have to knit before doing something. So I am a toe up knitter, so I cast on my number of stitches, increase, and then especially for this part, how far to knit between finishing the toe or at starting the toe, the beginning of the sock, and where you start increasing for your gusset, I think that's what you call it. That is the important measurement that I need to know for knitting socks. This is for my sister for Christmas. As I said, I already started the second one. They are not totally matching, but I don't mind if they don't match 100%. So I made this sock formula, as I said, for me, just to be able to knit different sizes. I am thinking about maybe turning that into a pattern, so I made this sock formula for fingering weight, for sport weight, and for DK weight socks. So if this is something that people are interested, I might publish it as a pattern. I think it's very convenient because you can literally just plop in what your gauge is, so you could knit at any gauge and just check the size that you want to knit, and it will give you the numbers. As I said, it is for a toe up sock. Maybe some people would be interested in that. I always just plop any pattern that I feel like onto this sock formula. So this one is just a 3x1 ribbing, ending with a 1x1 twisted rib up here at the cuff. The second sock that I am working on is for my partner for Christmas. I also have one sock finished, and this is this one, and have started the second sock. I think, at the heel. I can take it out of here. I am just working on the heel. Both of these socks, both of these yarns here, are sport weight yarn. I have decided I will not knit any gift socks in fingering weight anymore because it just takes too long. Sport weight is amazing, it's quick, it's fun to knit. So this one is Wolle. That's the wrong one. Here. This, yeah, Wolle. This is an Austrian yarn, and the wool is also Austrian. It is superwash, but as I said, I will use superwash yarns for socks, especially for gifting socks, because I don't want to, I don't know, well, my sister will take care of, she also knits from time to time, she would take care of a non-superwash sock, but I don't want to run the risk of knitting a nice pair of socks, gifting it to someone, and they just felting it at the first time that they put it into the washing machine. So that's why I will knit socks using superwash. The second one, and this one, the sun is coming out, is the Gründel, wow, there you go, Gründel Hot Socks. It's a 6-ply, also sport weight yarn. And this one, I am jumping back and forth between these socks here, I'm very sorry. This one, I am just using the pattern from Hermione's Everyday Socks, which I absolutely love that pattern. I have knit multiple socks with that. Yeah, that's the pattern that I'm using on this one. So those were all of my knits. I have one crochet project here, which is very exciting. If you have watched my last episode, I think, I talked about my yarn stash, and I talked about the mitered corner blanket that I started, I don't know when, a year ago, a year and a half, 2 years, and that was hibernating. I was pretty close to finishing, but I never got around to finishing it because I stopped loving the project. It was not heart jumping to me anymore, as Sarah would say. And then I was thinking about what I would be doing with this project, because I had all this yarn and it was kind of frustrating. And then one evening I was lying in bed, it was already pretty late, and I am actually a person who goes to bed very early, and I had to think about this pattern or this tutorial that I saw on Pinterest of how to make crochet look woven, and it looked beautiful. And I don't know why, but that evening I thought of that and thought, why do I not try that out with this blanket? I got up, it was pretty late, and tried it out, and it turned out that it was not normal crochet, but it was Tunisian crochet. So I did not have Tunisian crochet needles, which are long needles or crochet needles with like a cord at the end, so that you can pick up a lot of stitches and then crochet them off again. It's a bit of a mixture of knitting and crocheting, I would say. If you have not seen Tunisian crochet, check it out. It's a lot of fun. So I tried it out on the one little needle that I had, and I absolutely love the result. So I ordered some Tunisian crochet needles that I could start my blanket. This is what it looks like. I used the yarn that I started to unravel my other blanket. I am using this green shade from that, and the white, and the gray, and I also added in this brown that I had, and this beige that I also showed you in my stash dive. I love how this looks. It looks pretty white in the camera. I hope that I can get some other footage. And it's really fun to make. I have them on these long needles here. It's very simple, so if you're a crocheter or a knitter, check it out if this looks like something that would interest you. It's really fun to make. I am really happy that I can also incorporate especially this one, into the blanket, and I think it looks really, really nice. This yarn is mainly the Gilead from Rerum Natura. I also started incorporating some of my leftover white yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners, which is very similar. On a distance you can't see the difference, which I'm very happy about. I also still have a sweater knit in that yarn, which I never wear, and I will see how far I get with the whites that I have, and if it's not enough, I will rip out that sweater and use the white from that sweater for this blanket. That is the plan. I cast on a total of 40 stitches to have these strips, and once I get a strip that's long enough for my liking, I will just put in some scrap yarn. This is the back, by the way. This is how the back looks like. I will put in some scrap yarn at the top and start doing the second row, and you can just go back and start like crocheting in this direction, and once you get to here you can pick up a stitch, crochet back, and that way you can always crochet back and forth and join them as you go, which is pretty convenient in my opinion. I hope the join looks nice, so you don't have to, once you finished all these strips, go back and sew them together. You can obviously do that if you want to. I will try out this joining as I go. I have the feeling that this podcast is all over the place. I am very sorry for that if that is the way that you think it is too. Wow. So those were all of my knitting projects. I have some knitting plans which I want to share with you because I am kind of excited about them. I have my laptop down here if I have not told you that. So that's why I'm looking here. Oh, it's snowing again. It started snowing yesterday and it's really nice. It's got me into the wintry mood, which is very fitting for my plans of sweater knitting or knitting altogether. First of all, okay. I am kind of thinking about knitting a Christmas winter sweater for myself. I never thought that I would be a person to actually want one of these, but for some reason I am really in the wintry, Christmassy mood and would love to have a nice colorwork sweater with all the winter themes on it. There is the Festive Yoke Pullover by Skeinier Knits, which is absolutely beautiful, but it is a round yoke pattern and it is knit in sport weight yarn. The only real nice color work that I have been able to do is with the Platulopi unspun yarn from Istex, and that is definitely not a sport weight. You could go with just one strand, but I am kind of afraid of doing that because it will probably split a lot. So I am thinking about knitting a different pattern with this festive yoke vibe going on here. And one of the patterns that I am thinking about doing is the Rue Sweater by Rebecca Clow. This has a very interesting shaping that I have not knit before. It's like this saddle shoulder, raglan saddle shoulder thing going on with a beautiful color work after you have split for the sleeves. So it has a 20 stitch gauge. I have a 14 to 16, 17 stitch gauge with the Plötulopi. So I am hoping that I could go down a size or two and make that work this time for real. And change up her color work with some wintry motifs. So I was thinking about doing like this fleece stitch up here at the yoke, or up here where she just has one color, so it kind of looks like snow, and then going over to some reindeers, some Christmas trees, some snowflakes, some stars, something like that. I would love to knit this, but I don't have any suitable yarns. As I said, I would knit this in the E-Sticks Plötulopi yarn. I am thinking about going a similar direction as this one, but I already have. This is my third sweater or knit in this beigeish yarn, so maybe I would also choose a red or a dark green. Maybe probably more red and not a stark white, but more of a beigeish as the contrast color, to have it a bit more toned down. That is, I am toying with doing that. I think this would be a really nice knit for December, but I can already hear my boyfriend saying that he also wants one and will be really annoyed that I'm knitting it for myself and not for him. But I am gifting him a sweater for Christmas. He can choose what he will get, but he will then get it after Christmas, because he will get this little tiny sweater that I showed you last time for Christmas as like a gift voucher thing. So that is one of the ideas that I have that I am toying with. The next thing that I really want to knit is another Great Love by Anka Strick. It is a very big cardigan. So I already made one of these. I think I never showed it to you. I also did this in Plötulopi yarn, the exact same color as this. And it's a big chunky cardigan. I love to wear it as a second layer over some sweaters, just to keep extra nice and warm, or when I go outside. I get cold very easily, so I love that as a second layer. And I would like to knit another one using probably a Plötulopi, but going with a rust red or yellow. I actually have, wait a second. I got these color charts for Plötulopi, for the Fialalopi and Letlopi, to just stop having the issue that I ordered the wrong color. So I was thinking about maybe this one. It's actually a bit more yellow than it pops up here, or more of a rusty orange. I think I would prefer this yellow one, which would be similar to the hat that I knit. Where is it? You can kind of see it here. There you go. It's kind of similar, and I just think that it would be a really nice pop of color, and it would fit also very nicely over my green, purple, and red hinterland dress that I have, that I don't wear that often, but I think it would fit very nicely. And I also, it has a very interesting, very interesting pattern, which is just a combination of knits and purls. But I have always loved the moss stitch, or the seed stitch, or the double moss stitch, seed stitch. I get very confused about all those names. And I would love a garment in that, but always thought, okay, if I knit a sweater, I don't want to have to knit all those purls. But if I knit a cardigan, which is knit back and forth, I have to knit purls either way, so I can also just make a cardigan in a double moss seed stitch that way and have it. So I think this would be very, very gorgeous. I am not sure if I will knit it has like this shawl collar. Not quite sure if I will knit it that massive or knit it like that at all, or I will see. But that is some of the yarn that I need to order. You can also just check, I don't know if there's maybe this would, wow, this would be a nice combination for like my festive sweater. I'm not sure. I will just keep looking at my color charts. I'm sorry for this being all over the place, but that's just what it is today. So another great love cardigan is number 2 on my list of what I would like to make. The third one is some fingerless gloves, fingerless mitts, fingerless gloves, whatever you want to call it. And I would really like to try out some fisherman's rib or some, what is it called, brioche. I have never knit that, and I think it would be nice to knit some smaller things in brioche before knitting some larger things that I would really like to knit in the near future, but this one first. So I thought it would be great to combine fingerless mitts with some brioche, and I found the Fisherman's Rib hand warmers by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern. It's, as far as I can see, or the pattern tells me, it is knit in Fisherman's Rib. I think that is that the same as brioche, or is that like half brioche? No, there's Fisherman's Rib and there's half Fisherman's Rib. I have no idea what the difference is. I have no idea what, like, if Fisherman's Rib is the same as brioche. You probably know better than I do. Anyway, I think this would be a nice pattern to knit. I'm not that big a fan of it going brioche, going like end to end. I think I would insert some just normal ribbing. This is knit with a sport weight yarn with a gauge of 24 stitches and 64 rows for 10 centimeters. That is, I don't think that, or is that, okay, that's probably because you have to knit the Fisherman's Rib like 2 rows to get 1 row. I hope that makes sense. That's probably why it's 64 rows. Anywho, I would like to knit this also in the Istex Unspun Plutolopi yarn because I have that, and I think it would be nice as fingerless mitts, maybe because they can felt a bit. I don't know if brioche will felt. Wow. Okay, I'm unprepared for this. So I will probably, maybe I can try actually knitting this with 1 strand of Plutolopi. Try that out if that works. That would also open up a whole new section of knitting for me if that actually works nicely without the yarn ripping too often. So that is pattern number 3 that I really want to knit and will probably cast on quite soon. And number 4 are some leg warmers. Just very simple leg warmers, probably going with the 2x2 ribbing. I talked about this in my last video in my stash dive. Those are still on my list. So those 4 things I want to knit. I will also be casting on a big men's sweater in the near future. My dad turned or had a big birthday in the middle of November, and me together with my 2 sisters, or it was my idea to gift him a hand knit sweater by me, so I will knit it and my sisters will pay for the yarn. And he is coming to visit us at the beginning of December, so I want to talk with him about what he wants and what yarns, and we'll cast that on also in the near future. That will also be a big project because I am used to knitting sweaters for myself. I'm not that big, not that tall, or for my nieces, and they are even smaller than me, so that will be a big project. I'm not quite sure what sweater I will knit for him. He can decide that. I have made a list with men's patterns, which are not too which are more toned down, more minimalistic. I have 14 patterns on here. If you are interested in that, I can also talk you through those patterns. I don't know if anybody would want to see that, but I just checked out some patterns which I thought would suit him. They have a little bit of cabling, some also just textures or minimalistic color work, and we will see what he thinks. If you're interested in those men's sweaters, let me know. I could make a video about the patterns that I chose, which if you have a man or are a man who is knitting and would like to see those patterns. So that was my chaotic update on knitting. I am very sorry if it was too all over the place for you. I hope my next one will be more structured. So since I left out the quilting section of this video and will make a separate video for you next week, I wanted to leave you with a proper goodbye and say thank you so much for sticking around if you have watched it until here. I hope you enjoyed what you've seen, and hopefully we'll see you soon or in the comments down below. Bye!